Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald, but I think you knew that. If you didn't know that, you know that now, and which is very great. We've got a great guest for you today who is bringing us something that I'm really totally unfamiliar with because it has to do with AI and some modern things that are going on. And I brought him here to explain to us how it all works and what it's all about. And all that kind of stuff. And Alan is here. And Alan, can you pronounce your last name so I don't get it screwed up?
Imbarrato.
And if you go to his website, which is KiFlow .versel.app, is that right?
Yeah, or you can just go to .app, either one, it's fine.
Oh, okay. And explain to us what this is that you've created and have recently put out there, and it's actually doing really quite well. Explain what it is.
It's an app that I designed to support a person to understand the root triggers of their stress and how to transform them into a positive growth mindset. So I first created an app in 2011 in the App Store called Stress Shifter. And now that AI is available, I have now injected and created an AI guide called KiFlow, which helps make it a very personalized, specific experience for each person to tell their stress story or what any stress situation you're in any area of your life, and then guide you into an understanding and a breakthrough to shift that into a positive growth mindset, positive actions, and understanding how to stay in a stress-free zone.
That would be a neat trick, staying in a stress-free zone, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there seems to be a lot of stress out there these days.
Oh, I have noticed, but the key skill is stress resilience, how to recover instead of letting stress build up and becoming chronic stress. Because as you know, most chronic diseases start with chronic stress. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all these things have the root in inflammation, which has the root in overactivation of cortisol in your system, which is triggered by your stress response system, that it never goes off. I mean, originally our stress response system was designed for physical threats 20 millions of years ago, when you encountered physical things like a
a dinosaur that was chasing you.
Yeah, dinosaurs or whatever. So now most of our threats are triggered by social threats, in terms of being around people that judge you, or being in situations where you're feeling controlled or you don't feel safe. So anything that doesn't make you feel safe can trigger your stress response system.
So give me an idea, because I'm not, stress is one of those things where it's like when people say I'm stressed out or whatever, but I don't really get an idea of how somebody knows what their stress level is or how stressed out they are. Do you have any thoughts behind that?
Yeah, that's a common question that you don't really make the connection with you're in a stress state. But if you start to feel queasy in your stomach, you start to feel tight in your shoulders, you start to feel palms sweaty, you start to feel nervous, feel anxious, you get anger, you get triggered in anger, you all of a sudden lose your energy, or you go unconscious, you're in a stress reaction. Okay. So that's important to identify so that you can nip it in the bud. But a lot of people just go from one situation to another and carry their reactions into the next situation and compound it. So for instance, if you're in a meeting and you get triggered, someone like gives you a funny tone of voice, or someone has a conflict with you, or someone doesn't like what you said, and you feel funny about that, and then you go into the next meeting, but your stress response system feels still on edge or threatened by that comment. You're still thinking of a part of your subconscious is still wrapped up in that reaction. So the idea is how to identify mindfully, using mindful awareness, to notice when you get triggered.
And getting triggered, that we toss around that term a lot, but there are lots and lots of different things that can trigger us, and it may not even be necessarily related to the topic at hand. It can be, as an example, if you're I was in a meeting once, and the guy was overbearing and he was difficult, but he reminded me of somebody from my past, and it got to the point where it didn't really matter what he said, because I was triggered by how he was acting and how he was performing. Is that kind of part of what you're working to resolve?
That's exactly that most of our reactions start in early childhood, where we feel powerless and we don't have a clear identity yet, or a clear sense of autonomy. So we're subject to approval and disapproval. We're trying to be a good boy or good girl, or we're trying to make sure that we're right and avoid being wrong. So approval and control are our triggers at an early age, and we develop these strategies. I call them survival strategies of how we get by. So we learn how to play it safe, or conform, or be nice, or we learn how to avoid being blamed, so we have nice stories to tell or have good excuses. So all of these survival strategies are part of our reptilian and our mammalian brain, that it's not personal, because we all do them and we all have them, and our brain can be triggered by what's called our amygdala, which basically keeps track of any time we ever were wounded, any time we ever were threatened, and it's constantly on guard to protect us. So all of these things that you said you got triggered in the middle of a meeting are reminding your amygdala of a point in the past where you got hurt, and so it wants to protect you and defend you.
Yeah, because in this particular scenario, the gentleman that was talking to me, he had a plan. I didn't have a plan, because he kind of sprung it on me, and then he knew what he was talking about, and it was like I was like, because I hadn't considered what he was talking about yet, and I think this happens to everybody, but he knew what he was trying. He knew he was trying to trigger me, and because there were other people in the room, that he was going to use my example to keep them in line. Does that make sense?
Yes, because I have like this thing, the control axis and the approval axis. And the control axis is the judge, is the be right. And he's always trying to dominate and make other people lesser, make them wrong, so that he can be right and he can be above. So that's his way of surviving. That's his way of staying in control. And he wants, other people to feel submissive to him. That's his strategy. Okay. But so he puts you in the victim strategy of being abused or being judged, and you lose your power. And so you feel like you have to defend yourself and not let yourself be abused by that.
But you're in a setting in this case, it was with 20 other guys and women. We were all general managers at different restaurants, and he set it up so that he could use what I did in my restaurant as an example of what not to do in somebody else's restaurant and stuff. So it became a really, and I had no answer for it. And all I knew was that I walked around for the rest of the day ready to kick the dog, kick the wife, and the other people that were in the room and stuff. And it would be nice if I had a mechanism by which I could figure that out and then resolve the stress within my own mind, within my own heart and soul, so that I could get past it and through it. Does the app do any of that kind of stuff for us?
That's exactly what it does. I mean, that's a really good example that the compounding effect that what happens in work, then you take it home, kick the dog or get into a fight with your wife or you yell at your kids, that you're still in that reactive mode. Emotions are really designed to really resolve themselves after like 90 seconds or 2 minutes. That's all, but it's like when you don't allow that emotion and you're wanting to get rid of that emotion, or you don't fully experience that emotion, it gets suppressed. And then, so what the app does is you would tell that story exactly as you told it to me. And then it would take you through a process of mindful, what's going on in your body? What were the reactions? What were the body sensations? What were the emotions you're feeling? What were the thoughts you were having? And it would lead you to understand what got triggered. What was the underlying fear? Was it fear of failure? Was it fear of being judged? Fear of being shamed? Fear of being rejected? Fear of looking bad? There would be some core fear. So the AI would help guide you and give you options until you resonated with the one that felt like, yeah, because you're going to feel a shift in your body. As soon as you get that insight in your body and in your mind, you're going to feel your energy in your body shift. And then it takes you into the next phase.
I don't suppose that there it would tell me, because this was a work situation, and so this was a district sales manager that had his whole district there, and we were all frightened because he was new, and it was a new district that had just been formed, so we were all afraid of our jobs, and we didn't want to, and he happened to pick me because I was apparently an easy target. But so my stress was, not only is he making me look bad in front of all these other people, but he's threatening me with my job at the same time because he said I didn't do a very good job. And so that to me, that was like the ultimate stress, because going through that, it was like, all right, how am I going to pay my bills? What's the wife going to say? I don't have my resume updated, and all of those things that run through your minds. How do you get that to be calmed down?
So the social survival tapped into physical survival. So your physical livelihood was being threatened. So that compounded the stress reaction and made it, instead of like a 2 or 3 reaction, made it like a 7 or 8 reaction, or maybe 9. So the way to calm down is to begin. Fear stands for false expectations appearing real. FEAR, false expectations. So the mind jumps and starts hypothesizing or hallucinating. This is going to mean I'm going to lose my job. Okay. Now,
Yep.
So going into a mindfulness awareness state, and you can notice that that was the trigger, then you begin to unravel that, unpack that, and ask yourself, how real is that? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do I believe that's true? So it's your belief that it's true that feeds the reaction. So that's the solution also, is to change your belief. That the belief could be, I don't really need to have this person in my life abusing me or talking to me like that. I'm a powerful person. I can get a new job. I don't have to take this, or I'm okay. When you know that in your center, you feel empowered. There's an empowered place, which is called the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the one that goes into reaction. The parasympathetic is your calm. So if you know how to shift, and that's the shift that the app does, is it shifts you back into your parasympathetic, where you begin to create positive actions. So what actions could you take in this situation that will empower you to find something that is a better fit for you? What would you have to believe about yourself where you wouldn't feel threatened by this person? So it engages you in that kind of a conversation and leads you into specific actions that you can now take that will, in this particular situation, that will not necessarily lead to more reaction, but will lead to a positive outcome.
Does the app ever say, you need to quit your job and punch that dude in the face? That would be good, but probably not, because you
Well,
might.
it does give you what's appropriate and what's inappropriate.
Oh, good.
So that would be on the inappropriate side.
That would be close to being inappropriate. You're correct, sir. Uh, by the way, we're talking with Alan Imbarrato. What? Give me your last.
Imbarrato.
Well, thank you very much. And go look at KiFlow app. That would be a great place for you to, if you want to explore that. When we come back, we're going to talk more about that because it's AI driven. I know nothing about AI, and I don't know how it all works, and if it really is human. We're going to talk with Alan about that when we come right back from this message. And by the way, if you're a real estate agent, want to be one, or trying to be one, but haven't got any listings, I got a guy for you to talk to.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. We've got Alan with us, and Alan is the developer, the guy who made it, the AI app, which is called KiFlow. Is it KiFlow?
KiFlow.
KiFlow.
Ki
And
means
it's AI.
life. Ki is life energy, like chi.
You know. One of my favorite words. And by the way, could you hear the music?
Yes.
Perfect. I've been having some issues with my platforms, and I'm glad it got fixed. And in any event, so you have been doing this for a long time because you started out. Well, let's talk about Alan. When did you start worrying and thinking about stress reduction, helping people live a little bit better life? What's your story behind that?
All right. Well, I started back when I was in my 20s,
A couple of years ago.
over 50 years ago.
Oh, stop it. You're not, never mind. I won't do the math. But anyway, go ahead.
I just turned 74. Okay.
Congratulations. Good for you.
So I was going to UCLA, and at that time there was a war in Vietnam that we wanted to stop. So I worked in the anti-war movement, and we did a lot of things that to try to prevent that war. And I met a fellow named Rennie Davis, who was a member of the Chicago 7, and he and I would go around to rallies and try to help resist the war and get peace. Okay.
Do you know that is he's a famous guy? Did you know that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I worked with him and Tom Hayden and Jane Fonda. I worked.
Oh, for heaven's sakes!
Yes.
That I knew there was a reason why you were. I really wanted to talk to you because going back, and I'd like to, Alan. I don't know if you know this, but there are a lot of people that are younger than us that don't really remember 1966, 67, 68, 69, and 70. That 5-year period. Not only musically was it important, but it was also a real generational change for people. And that included people like Jane Fonda and so many others. And you lived through that. You were there. Have you written the book yet?
Well, kind of. I've written lots of tape packages and workbooks and things like that, but I haven't written this particular part in the book. But anyway, I got involved with Rennie, and Rennie ended up going to the peace talks in Paris, and he met some people, which led him to this guru in India, and he had this really profound experience. And when he came back from India, I was one of the first people he told about it. And so I got very conflicted because I was very political, but I was also starting to be very spiritual and having all these deep experiences. And so I ended up, after many months of going back and forth, being initiated into this meditation from this guru. And I ended up moving into this ashram and lived in this ashram for like 10 years and just really studying meditation. I eventually became a meditation teacher. This was like in the in the 70s and early 80s. And so I basically would meditate many hours and have very deep experiences and understand who we really are as a human being. And that got me very interested in how when we aren't in that peaceful, calm state, we are there because we've gotten triggered into stress. So I ended up developing this seminar after I was a meditation teacher called Winning at Work and at Life. And I traveled all over the country in corporations, teaching people how to go from a survival mindset into a growth mindset and how to make that shift from fear into vision and purpose and empowerment.
What do you think it is? And first of all, so you were involved with meditation before meditation was cool, but you know that.
I do know that, yes.
Because meditation and yoga and contemplation and mindfulness, those are all kind of current buzzwords, but they weren't around before really in my world. They didn't touch me before 2000. In that area, and you were there at the forefront of teaching people stuff that they had no earthly idea, and there were some religious people that would say, "Oh, that's of the devil," kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure you experienced that in the early days.
Yes. No, people weren't accepting or as accepting as it is now. It's more mainstream. Most corporations now have mindfulness practices and mindfulness coaches, and it's that neuroscience now has backed up all the benefits of meditation, and now it's like pretty much yoga and meditation are widely accepted as important parts of a wellness life.
Because I talk to a lot of martial arts people, and when they're talking about martial arts from the Eastern philosophy, now meditation goes back thousands of years. And a lot of it is in their culture and who they are. And why do you think it is that in the Western world we were so slow to accept it?
Well, we are more in a different part of our brain. We're more logical and rational, and our educational system doesn't encourage us to trust the more intuitive right side of our brain, so to speak. And our economics or certain focus on the fruits of life or the good things in life come from the outside, not from the inside. But I grew up in a middle-class family, and I wasn't really well off, but I had most of the things that people say you should have, or my family provided that. But my soul wasn't satisfied, so I got very involved in Jungian psychology. Read a book, Man in Search of a Soul, and began my quest to understand there's got to be more to this than just pursuing all the external things. I mean, I have all the external things now myself. In fact, I'm quite well off, but my satisfaction comes mainly from meditation. Every day I spend at least an hour or two in meditation. That's where I find the real joy, the real purpose, and the real excitement of life is by connecting to my own life force within myself. And then I do that everywhere I go. Like that's my foundation. And that enables me to enjoy everything on the outside in a very a mindful way.
And a lot of, I won't say a lot. Well, okay, I'll say a lot. A lot of people don't really get that they have got this inner source, this inner wisdom, and this inner intuition that comes from them, not from an external source. And your app and your work and your really honestly your life are testaments of what that's all about, because you have led this your whole life. How did you feel in 1978 when you said, I do a mindful or a meditation study, and they said two things: first of all, what's that, and second, get out of my office?
Well, I understand there was resistance, and we had to, find ways, creative ways of talking to people and opening people up. Now it's much easier to have that conversation. But,
Yes.
Eastern cultures, as you were saying, Buddhism particularly, or Hinduism, are rooted in understanding that we're connected. American Indian cultures have a sense of the unity, the harmony of the universe. And if you go to Mexico, if you go to, Chichen Itza, they have these pyramids there, whereas the same way they had pyramids in Egypt, there was a sense of unity or harmony with the universe. And that kind of understanding, that foundation, a lot of it is in indigenous cultures. But now that understanding of the perspective, that reality has been fueled by the personal growth movement, which began in the 60s. A lot of it changed because people started taking psychedelics in the 60s, okay?
Yeah, well, there is that.
And or drugs, or people started opening up. Aldous Huxley, was a big influence, and there were lots of ways that people just had their sense of what's real opened up, and that led to more of an openness. And the Beatles got connected with this guru called Maharishi, who happened to come to my high school when I was in '68. In my high school, he came to my high school. But the Beatles popularized meditation with a lot of their songs and a lot of their music, and that generation that I'm a part of, has continued. But it's sort of a shame that all that work and all that consciousness and all that evolution has led to what we're dealing with today, where the world is like really back into a very fear state. Every day people are being threatened, and the economy is like in turmoil, and we're on the verge of another war. So it's like, how do you keep your calm and peace in the face of all these things going on in the world right now? That's an important thing. If you have this foundation, these tools of how to find your center, how to be calm and find your inner peace, that enables you to not get so upset or bothered by what's going on.
Well, I think the major issue for a lot of people is they don't know how. They know that what's going on is not great, and they would like it to be different, and they would like to live, because I see you and I are contemporaries. So I was around during those times in '68 and '69, and there was a real different flavor to it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I mean, there were protests, but they were protesting for a good reason,
Yeah.
which was to stop the Vietnam War. And so many of our contemporary friends and family that were going to the war, and many didn't come back, or they came back disfigured or mentally challenged in many ways, and stuff. And it was an important time. And when we come back from this break, I'm going to ask Alan, what's happened? Why do you think it has changed the way it is? And is it just marketing? Is it, why can't we all get along? And that's one of the reasons why KiFlow is out there, because it shifts your stress and it learns to help you flow rather than fight and have the fight and flight mentality that so many of us have. Even this last weekend with the with all the protests, millions of people were out there, and there was a lot of anger and there was a lot of stuff. And we're going to talk about that when we come back, because this is an app that can help you um, remain centered, so that when you get triggered, you can talk about that to your favorite AI person, which is in your computer and or in the app, and it can help you figure it out. And I want to talk to you about how you help program it to be, because these are all really physical, emotional things. How did you get an AI to be able to recognize that and to help deal with it? So we're going to take a quick break for our halftime show, and we will be right back in a minute and 10. Stay with us. We're talking with Alan Imbarrato. Go ahead.
Imbarrato.
Alan Imbarrato, and he go to his website, which is KiFlow .app, and look at this app. It may be the newest way, and it might save you a ton of money from your therapist. So we will be right back after this.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And Alan, has anybody ever said to you, and I just want to say this real, is anybody calling you yet? Hey, there's Alan, the KiFlow guy, or the KiFlow, whatever it is. And it's an app that helps you monitor your stress and to get it down. A quick story I have to tell you, when we were talking about the 60s and LSD and drugs, I was a little younger, too young for that crowd. I was a little bit behind you. But I remember Beatles were my favorite group. And I remember Rubber Soul and Revolver and the songs that they came out with then. And then they went on like a 6-month hiatus. And I think that's when John Lennon took some enhancements to himself. And they said, and here's a brand new Beatles song. And it was Strawberry Fields Forever, which was completely different than anything they'd ever done. And then I knew that the times were changing. They were a changing, and they were getting more serious and stuff. But Alan,
Lucy in the Sky and Diamonds.
Oh yes, Lucy in the Sky, which is
Sergeant Pepper.
Sergeant Pepper and Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds for many years. Before one of them, I think it was John, corrected it when they said Lucy in the Sky with Diamond. That means LSD. Aha! So you can snicker. And it didn't mean LSD at all, according to John. He just said that was a picture that Julian Lennon, his son at the time, came home from school with, and it was a plane with a gal in the cockpit, and it said Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And I don't know if you remember that part of the story.
Yeah, I think that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yes, but so you have spent your life and really working with mindfulness, with meditation, with understanding your deep spirituality. You work at it every day, and a lot of people don't take the time to do that. It's been And then there's some people who take more than that time. I was talking with a gal not too long ago that went to a meditation retreat and they did not talk for 10 days. Have you
Hmm.
ever heard of such a thing?
Oh yeah, that's a common thing these days. A lot of people do that.
I can't imagine not talking for 10 days. Can you?
No, no. I
And
used to go on retreats, but not 10 days and not talking. But
I got to ask you, have you ever been to Sedona?
many times, yeah.
My associate Rochelle, I've been mentioning to her about Sonoma, and I'm one of these days we're gonna do a car trip and we're gonna go down there because I think it's a highly spiritual place.
Oh,
And
there's these energy vortexes there that you just get near them and you just go into a very elevated meditation state just by being in that vortex of energy. So it's definitely worth checking out.
it's a wonderful place, and as is everywhere. But I wanted to ask you, why do you think it is? Because there was a period of time when, even back in '99, 2000, when Neil Donald Walsh wrote Conversations with God, and Gary Zukav wrote Seed of the Soul, there was a movement afoot of a very positive spiritual movement. We are all one. We're all connected. Some basic philosophies that have gone back eons, and that's what was around for a little while, and now it's gone to some degree. Why do you think that is?
Well, you could just say it has to do with a certain individual who happens to be the president, creating a lot of fear.
Well,
But
there is
he
that.
has a lot of followers, so you can't just single him out because he wouldn't be where he is if there weren't a lot of people who were thinking like he thinks. So people are in fear. I mean, basically, it's a fear-based mentality that we got to keep these immigrants out of this country. We got to people who are different than us. We've got to have a travel ban. We can't let them in our country. So we've got to not allow this. We've got to be more conscious, and we've got to bring the light into this fear. And I don't think the light workers or all the people who've been doing all the consciousness workers have gone away. We just sort of like need to get stronger and more clear how to express that in such a way that people understand the value of it. Because right now people are being hurt and they're not being served, in my viewpoint.
And I want to thank you for that, because I agree with you wholeheartedly. One of the things that I'm working to do, I've got Positive Talk, which I dearly love, and we do a lot of shows, but I used to do a show called My Independence Report because we were declaring our independence from hate, division, and fear. And I'm planning on bringing that back because I think the time for it is sorely needed for us to talk in ways of, okay, so this is what they said, this is how we can interpret it so that we can get through it and not have to live in the fear and the hate and division that is dividing this country so miserably and stuff. And so that's why I'm excited about having you on the show to talk about your app, because I think your app can help a lot of people get
Yeah,
through some of that.
they just, it's in Apple App Store. It's in Google App Store. It's free to try out. It's a 7-day free trial. So you can just like get a taste of it. But, people want stress relief. They don't necessarily want stress transformation, to do the work of stress transformation. So my job of the app is to engage people in a daily practice to begin to see that stress is not the enemy. Stress is your friend. Stress is a signal of how to become stronger mentally and emotionally. So if you have a growth mindset, you're willing to do that inquiry and get interested in your stress reactions as clues to what your underlying triggers are, so that you can eventually erase these triggers and they no longer will be triggered once you get to the core belief that's motivating that reaction. So if you have underlying trigger like people don't like me, or I'm afraid of being rejected, so you're always trying to get people's approval. So you do all these things to get people's attention. You wear the right clothes, you have the right cars, you have the right house, you hang around the right people. But there's that part of our brain that says, people don't like me, or you get a funny look or a bad email or a bad tone of voice, and it triggers you. So if you didn't have the childhood belief, a childhood survival strategy that believes that, yes, that's true, people don't like me, then you're going to continue to try to gather lots of evidence to prove that wrong. Or you're going to try to gather evidence to prove it right. But if you don't have the belief in the first place, you can just give up that whole line of thought, and that whole trigger won't bother you anymore. So it's about empowering you to do an inventory of your limiting core beliefs and ask yourself, yes, I used to believe this as a child, but do I want to continue to believe this as an adult? And start to reparent yourself with nurturing and self-love and self-care to reevaluate all these limiting core beliefs that got installed before you had a conscious mind to discern whether they were true or not. Am I making any sense?
Oh, absolutely. And let me, if I can expound upon that for just a second, is that we have got a group of stories that we tell ourselves that we believe to be 100% gospel. Yep, that happened to me, and this happened to me, and
exactly.
But a lot of times, what we perceive to have been the truth and what happened to us, it ends up being a story that we've told ourselves over and over again, and then it becomes fact. And then every time a similar situation or something even akin to it, it triggers us based upon a story that may not even be true.
Exactly.
Isn't that amazing that we are so strange?
So that's exactly what you do in this app is you go from your old story and then you end up with a new story. So it helps you visualize that. It even uses AI to create a picture of your new story. So when you have a vision of what you really want, then you don't focus on what you don't want. Fear is what you don't want. You're always moving away from something. But vision is you're moving towards something. So this old story that you're talking about, we all have them, but we take it personally. We think it's true, so we hide it. We don't want anyone to know that we have that story running in our mind. But if you expose it to the light and start to examine it, it falls apart. It's not rational. It's not logical. It's just something a 6-year-old made up or a 7-year-old made up.
And the story I have around that is I was at somebody's house with a friend of mine. I didn't know this kid very much. He was 6 years old. And my friend who introduced us said, I got to go home. And I didn't have to go home. So I said, well, I'll hang around here. And I said, so what do you want to do? And he said, get lost. And I said, well, I don't know exactly what you mean there. And he said, no, go away, get lost. I don't like you. You're not. I was 6.
Yeah.
I for 20 years I told myself that story. A 6-year-old told me. It's like, oh, nobody likes me. They're going to tell, if I'm not careful, they're going to tell me to get lost. So I better be careful. None of that was true.
That's an excellent example. Yes.
Told by a 6-year-old who I haven't seen him in 50 years. So, it doesn't matter.
But Kevin, what's sad is that most of us are carrying around those stories and we still, our subconscious still believes they're true. And that's what generates all our stress is we're still afraid. That child is still afraid inside that it was rejected and it's not loved and it's not lovable. And so we don't allow ourselves to love ourselves because we believe that still.
Isn't that the saddest thing in the world that we have a resistance to loving ourselves based upon what somebody else said or did?
I know it's ridiculous, but we bought into it before we had a discerning mind.
We bought into it hook, line, and sinker. We did. And there are some people that value the victimhood with which they can continue that story. As an example, my mother-in-law was adopted. She continued that story for 86 years.
Mhm.
Nobody loves me. My mom didn't love me. Her mom in 1930 was 16 years old, and they took her to a home where she had the baby, and then they sold it. That's what happened in 1930, but she wouldn't even listen to that. And so it affected her entire life. It is so sad. And that's why I love talking to you, Alan, and love talking about and by the way, Brachelle is here, and she's
Hey,
going to be your
Rochelle.
friend. Oh, Brachelle, I got to tell you, you have missed. Unless you were listening to it, you missed an amazing show. This is Alan, and
Hi, Alan. I think we've met. And yes, I wasn't able to listen in at the time, but I'm going to go back and listen. I've kind of been behind the scenes for a minute, so I can tell it's been powerful.
we are going to go to, and I'm going to pronounce it KiFlow, and it's an app where when you are, and Alan, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're stressed, when you're feeling stressed, you can use this app to talk about what's bothering you and the stress, and the app will give you actions that you can take to remove, devolve, get rid of the stress, get rid of the stories that you told yourself, so that you can create new stories that mean something positive to you. Have I been close, Alan?
No, you were right on. That's a good summary. That's it. I mean, the app is like a guide, a companion in your pocket. If you're like going, like we talk to lawyers, if they are going about to present a case, but they're feeling all stressed, they can go in the bathroom for 10 or 15 minutes, pull out the app, and just figure out what's going on with them so that they're fresh to give a presentation, or a teacher or a worker. It's just it's like you don't have to schedule an appointment with your therapist. It's like I've given this to therapists, and they say it's like having a therapist in your pocket. Anytime at night you're feeling something, you can just pick up the app. And it's like, people think they can just talk to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and you can do something, but this app is designed with a special trained cognitive behavioral therapist agent. Okay. And he, in this training on this process, lead you step by step so you can have insights and find the thing that resonates with you. It doesn't tell you, it offers you things for you to contemplate or reflect on and find what resonates with you, and just lead you and guide you into a breakthrough. So ChatGPT, only responds to what you think you can ask it. But this is a very curated, guided process to lead you into the breakthrough.
And Michelle, I don't mean to interrupt, but there's an echo.
I don't know. Is it coming in since I went in? Well, let's go to our last break if you haven't done that already, and I'll can fix this.
Perfect. Yes, and by the way, Alan, I've heard of other things being in your pocket, but I've never heard of an app being in your pocket. But we'll be right back.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. And Brachelle was here. She's gone. She'll be back. But Alan, I wanted to ask you, I would like to give you the opportunity, because I do have a sizable audience, and I would love to give you the opportunity to tell our audience anything that you would like them to know about lifestyle, about the things you've learned over time, because I don't get to talk to very many people that have had the life experience that you have, and it really is dynamic for you to be able to tell our audience some of the things that you've learned over your 60, okay, maybe 70 years young on this planet? Can you do that for me?
Well, that's a wonderful question. So day to day, I run a software company, a worldwide software company, and we transform businesses with our software and using AI. So I practice all these things day to day when I deal with clients or I deal with my team or my employees. And everything is a growth opportunity. So to me, that mindset, having a growth mindset, that there's an abundance in the universe of energy. We think we have to compete against others, but really all we have to do is get to know who we really are and our true potential. Each one of us is connected to an infinite source of energy inside of us. And when you tap into that creative energy, all things become possible. So it's a whole different way of living life to have that kind of awareness that's underneath our identity, underneath all the stories we tell ourselves. You can tap in to this flow energy. And that's why I called it KiFlow, is that there's a natural flow that already exists. You don't have to create it. You just have to tap into it. It's like the river is flowing, but we're stuck over in the forest somewhere, looking for the water, looking for the river. But if all you have to do is go walk over here and tap into it because it's already inside of you. And that's the wisdom that I've gained from living in an ashram or meditating for like 50 some years, is that every day I can just tap into that. And it's a daily practice. It's not like, you can have big experiences of enlightenment or blowout experiences, but the key is to develop a daily practice of connecting to your soul, your spirit, your higher self. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's basically the same thing. And everybody has one, but most of us are so stuck in the monkey mind, they call it, just recycling the same thoughts over and over again. We have no idea how to find this inside yourself. So my recommendation, having done this for many years, is to check out your breath, go into your breath and follow your breath. And your breath means spirit, basically. And if you follow your breath, it will lead you into your soul or your soul energy. And that is like a whole other place to learn, to get familiar with. We're so interested in the outer world, but really, if you go on this inner journey, it's a very exciting, tremendously beautiful inner world that we all have an opportunity to access.
And I just wanted to say that you're absolutely right in that there are people of a spiritual nature that are after what they would term like enlightenment or some supernatural thing that happens to you. This is not a supernatural phenomenon. This is an everyday, how we were designed phenomenon. So you don't need the super magical, expeditious, wonderful experience that proves to you, oh my God, that's really real.
Mm-hmm.
If you know it's real and you know it's there, it doesn't need to be that. Do you agree with that?
That's my point. You got it. It's like learning to just be in the flow each day. So that's why stress is so important, because stress is a signal when you get out of the flow. It's like you're driving on the freeway and you have these sensors. If you go off in the lane, it sort of starts triggering you. That's what stress is. It's just a signal that you're getting out of your lane, out of your flow. So if you just learn how to be mindful and embrace the sensations rather than trying to, get rid of them. Most people like spend most energy like to drink, eat, run, something to change the body sensation. But if you see that your body is an intelligent energy source, you can learn to listen to your body, and your body will bring you back into that source energy by using your mindful awareness.
And Rochelle, can you hear that, or do you have a question that you'd like to ask Alan?
Yes, I can hear. I'm here. I had to switch to my phone, but more or less, I'm just thinking in terms of how many people don't
they have the realization and they have these things that happen to them, but they struggle with trusting what they're feeling and what they're hearing and what they're understanding, rather than knowing, is it coming from my soul or is this just my mind running rabbit thoughts? How would you maybe tell them to slow down enough to listen and know what's going on and when they're in touch with that?
Well, you said a key word. The key word is learning to trust your intuitive self. That everyone has intuition,
Yeah.
and you're getting also signals and signs every day, but we don't trust them. And so we go to our logic and our brain and try to rationalize and have reasoning. But if you learn to trust your intuitive wisdom,
Mhm.
and there's a different voice than the voice of fear in your head. And that takes some discrimination in terms of what you want to believe. All these old programs that we were
Yeah.
talking earlier about, and tapping into your own internal wisdom of your body and your soul. So it's really getting interested in knowing yourself. I mean, it's like basically we're here for a short time.
Yeah.
In here with nothing, we're going to leave with nothing. So we're here on a learning experiment to learn what works and what doesn't work. And your body is giving you feedback all day long of what's working by how you feel.
Yeah.
So if you tap into your emotions and see them as positive rather than negative, I mean, sometimes anger is appropriate. Sometimes fear is appropriate. Sometimes sadness is appropriate. But if it becomes chronic and you're just like constantly angry, then something is off. Something is become chronic. If you're always depressed, then you're shut down your energy. If you're constantly afraid or anxious, there's something off. But know that you have a center. I mean, I guess that's the real answer, is to trust that you have a center and there is a peaceful place. And that's like moving, what I said before, from your reliance on your sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight flight system, into your parasympathetic, which is your calm, rest, and digest system. So it's a lot of it is learning to regulate your nervous system. It's not so much psychological, but it's biological in terms of regulating your nervous system. I don't know if that's an answer is helping you, but
yes, no, that was very, very good. Thank you for that, Alan. More than for me, even for somebody listening that maybe had that question as well.
And by the way, good. I'm sorry, and by the way, I'm going to get KiFlow for Rochelle's family. They can pass it around and they can look at, because, we're all looking for a better way to deal with the everyday stress that we have and the things that pop up. You don't often have time. You don't always have time to go call your therapist, especially if it's like 4:00 in the morning or some silly thing. But if you have a tool that you can use, that you understand and believe and is working with you, you can eliminate a lot of stuff without really having to worry anybody else, can't you?
it can become your friend. It's like a companion. I mean, I use AI all day long in my work, but this app is specifically designed to transform stress into flow, into growth. So it's free, check it out. And if you want to, then you can, subscribe to it. But it's an opportunity to really learn a little bit more about what's triggering your stress and how you can have some power to not be triggered again. Over and over again.
Alan, I want to thank you so much for being here. And your last name again is?
Imbarrato.
Imbarrato.
The important thing is to go to Google Play or Apple App Store, KiFlow. Remember that. My name is not that important, but the app is. Okay.
It's KiFlow, and that's key with a K-I, like chi.
Exactly.
And so I remember that part. So good. Alan, thank you so much for being here. Rochelle, thank you. We'll be back at 3:00, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.